Joining me on Off Track this episode is arguably one of the UK's best kept secrets, not just in karting, but in motorsport as a whole. He's a multiple champion in the UK and across the continent. He's in pole position to be Great Britain's next FIA World Karting Champion, and at the age of just 20, is one of a very select group of professional kart racers in the world, driving for the factory Tony Kart team. But his rise to the top hasn't been without hurdles. And had he chosen to pursue a single-seater career instead of karting back in 2019, his career may well have come to a crashing halt. So, on that note, welcome to Off Track, Joe Turney. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, doing fine. I mean, it's obviously um, saw you the weekend at the British Championship, where you're working with your old team, KR Sport. But I mean,
hmm
that's just a sideline of the driver coaching, because you're racking up some fairly impressive, frequent flyer miles back and forth out to Italy and all over the world. I think this is you're into your fourth season as a factory Tony Kart driver.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
that's
yeah. No, I'm busy at the moment. We've had a busy start to the year. We've been in Portugal, Spain, Italy, been all over the place. We're in Sweden actually in 2 weeks' time. So it was nice to get home and do a bit of coaching at home with some British kids. Which in the end they did well. So it's quite rewarding to do that. I enjoy doing it, and it's actually a nice way to spend a bit of my time off. I know it's nice to get away from the track sometimes, but after 3 days, I was ready to get back in there.
yeah. I mean, and this is this. It's strange, isn't it? Because your job is karting. My one of my jobs is karting, and even though we both love the sport, tremendously, there are times where just a track is it's obviously there's pleasure involved in it because we love what we do, but it is work, it's a
Mm.
job, and everybody needs you know a little downtime, once in a while. But I suppose downtime for you is not sitting behind the wheel, is instructing drivers and passing on your knowledge that what's and helping drivers to introduce them to what has got you to this point in your life.
Yeah, definitely. Like as you said there, it's nice to have downtime. You know it as well. In racing, it is a full on job when you're there because you have your early mornings and you don't stop until 8 o'clock at night. So and that's day after day. You get back to the hotel at 10 o'clock, and if you don't go to sleep, then you'll be in a bit of a
Yeah,
state the next day when you have to get up at 5 or 6 o'clock. So it is a full on job. It's important to have your time away, but no, I enjoy the coaching bit. It's still quite nerve wracking and still gives a bit of pressure to me, but it's in a different way. When it's racing myself, I know what I need to do, and I know what I need to do to improve at the track and things like that. But when it's working for other drivers, you sort of feel like you can't do enough. You're always trying to remind them of things that they can do better and whatever. So especially when you've got more than when I'm racing, it's just me that I need to keep an eye on.
yeah,
But when I'm working with a team, you end up with 8 or 9 drivers, so it's pretty full on. But it's a good way, so I enjoy
yeah.
it.
I mean, well, I'll just sort of preface this. We're chatting to you. It's sort of middle of May, 2022.
Yep.
Um, you're currently just coming off the back of a dominant performance in the second round of the FIA European Karting Championships at Zuera. Um, 2 rounds into the FIA European Championships, you're top of the point standings. You've won both rounds, scored maximum points, 70 points with two rounds to go. And you've also already secured the WSK Masters Series
Yeah,
championship
Supermarket.
this year,
Yeah, that's the one.
Supermaster
Yep.
Series this year. So you're into your fourth season with Tony Kart, and things are really clicking together. Is it fair to say that 2022 is on pace to be your most successful season of your career so far?
Yeah, I'd say so. I've had seasons before when I've won multiple championships, but the championships weren't on the level of the races that I'm doing now. The previous years with the team have gone well, and we have won things together. But the European Championship, the highest we've been is third, and at the moment we got max points. We got a fair gap to second, so hopefully we can carry on in that direction It's the first WSK series I've won with them as well this
Yeah.
year in the Supermasters, which is a 4-round championships, and I think it had over 70 drivers, so that was really competitive as well. We just
And
need to
again,
carry on in that sort of direction.
yeah, for those people that might not know, so WSK, that's an Italian-based championship, and of
Yeah,
course, Tony Kart being Italian, it's the one. A lot of the karting factories are based in Italy, but I mean, WSK, Tony Kart, they're renowned for success in that, and it's something that every karting factory wants to win, in
yeah. I
Italy.
think to them,
Um,
it means quite a lot to them. The Italian Championship, they're obviously passionate guys, and
oh
they
yes.
enjoy to win their Italian trophies. So if I can bring them some joy by doing that, then that's my half my job done already.
Okay, well, obviously, we'll come back and talk about what could happen this year and what has happened this year to you. But I mean, we got to go back to the start and start at the start. So you're 20 years old now. You're going to be turning 21 next month.
Mm.
Sunny Milton Keynes is where you call home, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It has been for all of my life. Got Red Bull down the road, so it's a good place to start sort of for a racing driver. Very central. Got Silverstone just up the road, which I used to go to with my parents as well. Uh, but yeah, I've lived here all my life. Didn't start until I was 10, so I was quite a late starter. Just started in the
Yeah,
rental cart in Milton Keynes.
it's strange. You're in the perfect sort of area, sort of like Northampton, Milton Keynes area. That's known as Britain's Motorsport Valley. But you're not
Yeah.
from a motorsport family. I think your mum was as a journalist, and your dad was worked in car sales, so there was no automatic connection with the world of karting or motorsport. So you had to discover this passion for yourself. When did your very young sort of toddler Joe decide that he liked watching cars go round and round and round?
Well, I'm not too sure. I think I have vague memories of being at home and my parents had the F1 on the telly, and I used to like the red cars going around, so I was obviously a Ferrari fan.
Okay.
But it all started from there really, and then I was playing with my cars or whatever when I was young, and then went rental karting, as I said, for my birthday party when I was 10. Just did a bit more, got a bit more regular, started going every weekend or whatever, just me and my family. And then started doing some championships there. Went to regional stuff with Pro Train, which is based just up in Buckingham as well. So it was
Uh-huh.
always quite local and quite small.
So was it Daytona Milton Keynes where you
Yeah,
had your
that's the
birthday
one.
party? So yeah, so Daytona Milton Keynes is where it all started. Um,
Yeah,
and
but
obviously
but
you must drive past that, whether it's on the way to an airport to catch a flight to go to Zuera or to Portimao or to Genk. You know, do you still when you drive past that that place, Daytona Milton Keynes, on your way to a race, in
mm.
the world level, European level, what goes through your mind when you just is there something, a little flicker of sort of
Well,
yeah
it's a bit
emotions you drive past it?
nostalgic, I guess. My brother actually a few years ago when he was a bit younger, he was doing a bit of rental karting there, so I'd even go up and watch him going around. So it was a bit weird watching him, which is exactly what I was like all those years ago. So it is a it's nice. It's good to go back to where it all started. You see young kids going in, and you never
Yeah.
know where they could end up as well. So best of luck to the people who go there. It's definitely worth a crack, and it's good fun if anything else.
Now you mentioned Pro Train. So of course, when rental karting gets not as exciting as much fun as it was, and you're looking for the next step. Um, Obviously, was your dad sort of like mechanically inclined? What was the decision to go into like owner driver karting?
No, I wouldn't say so. He was. He probably likes to think he is, but he didn't. He didn't do any mechanicking to start off with. To be fair, he was always working when I was racing, so to make sure that we could afford to do it. So I'll let him off on that one. But no, I just started off with Pro Tram when I was 11. It was because I did my test with them, the ARCS test to get the license.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So I started with them. started doing a few little club races, won a couple of novice trophies or whatever, and I stayed
And
with
this
them
is at
for
this is at
another.
Wilton Mill Kart Club.
Yeah, Wilton Mill, Kimbolton as well, so Shennington as well. So they were all pretty local races, just little regional races that I was doing. Uh, and okay, I think actually in my first ever race at Wilton Mill, if I go back on the results, it was actually when Lando Norris was the one who won the final. So that's
Okay.
sort of one of my claims, that I actually did race with Lando once. So obviously we weren't on the same part of the track. He was a fair bit in front, but yeah,
Yeah, that would have been
that's it's pretty.
2011.
My first race was a race that he won, so that was pretty cool.
Well, it's a certain claim to fame. But so, I mean, obviously, a 10-year-old Joe doesn't really understand the concept of the amount of money that it costs to do
Mm.
to go karting. You're just like any kid. They're just like, I want to race, I want to race, I want to race. As a family, when was we first made aware of, okay, this we might have to sacrifice quite a bit to allow you to even it's a race at Wilton Mill, Shennington, Kimbolton, but then also potentially look up and move into the British Championships at Super One. Was that something that was impressed upon you at a young age? Because I got to say that when I first met you, when you were a cadet, you were, in terms of the maturity and level head on your shoulders and sort of understanding a bit more about what goes into putting you and the kart on track. You were some head and shoulders above most of the other kids that you're racing with. Is that
Mm.
boiled down to the fact that, mum and dad have had to say, listen, Joe, okay, we're going to do this, but
Yeah, I think so. Like I was always aware that it was expensive because we wouldn't always go and do every single race. We wouldn't have the latest and greatest equipment. So we tried to do our best, and I was aware of that. Um, but they probably said to me, like, listen, we can't afford to do this forever. So if you want to make it work, you got to do your best and make sure that you do the best of what you have. They never put pressure on me to do that. They just said, look, this is up to you. If you want to do well, it's up to you now. So, and I was put into a really good team. We didn't have all the money in the world, so we were quite selective with what races we did do and what coaches
yes.
we had and all of that. We didn't just go and say we'll go with them and we'll do 15 races in the next 2 months or whatever. It was always quite We were quite careful and smart about how we did it, I think.
Yeah, because this brings me on to my next thing. Well, there are two things really. You raced as number 96. Any
Right.
particular reason why you
No,
chose 96 to start with?
I think we got told for the first race we could choose what number we wanted, and it was 15 to 100. No, 15 to
Yep.
99, because the first 15 were reserved for the seeded
Yeah.
drivers
Senior
in.
drivers. Yep.
Uh, so I wanted 99 just because it was the highest number. I wanted to use that, but it was taken, so I got given 96.
Okay.
But then
And it
that
just
just
stuck.
stuck. Yeah, it just stuck. I just ended up using that whenever I could, until I ended up getting some seeded numbers, which as a kid, when I first started, I could only ever dream of having a seeded number. So I was
Yeah.
I was
And
always waiting to get one of them.
now you mentioned about going to teams and things like that, and picking the correct teams and the correct coaches. Brings me on to the next generation motorsport years. So you
Right.
started doing Super One, the British Championship, in the first year that the Army engine came into cadet, so 2013. And I mean, I was looking at that, that was against people like Dexter Patterson, Johnny Edgar,
Hmm.
Kian Jewis, Alex Quinn, Callum Bradshaw, whose name I think will appear in this conversation, again. But yeah, David Bell Chambers and next gen motorsport.
Yeah.
Interesting times.
Yeah, so that was back in 2013, I think. We're about
Yeah,
there. Yeah, it was a fresh team. I remember at the time in cadets it was Eclipse and Fusion were the two biggest ones, and
yes,
then
yeah.
next gen was an up and coming team. We didn't have the money to go to Fusion. That was way out of it. I think Eclipse was probably similar, whereas next gen was up and coming. They had promising drivers and the results were looking good, but maybe didn't have the history or whatever to charge the amounts that Fusion could. So we went to there. and it was really good. Dave was a fantastic coach, really
Yeah,
good
I was
with the
going to say a
younger
lot of
drivers as
people have got
well.
lots of opinions about Dave Bellchambers, but he is a superb driver coach. I mean, in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
opinion,
For
would you agree with that? I think he's
yeah, I was young when I was there, and he can explain it in a way that kids just understand. And as soon as I went there, then I think that was where I learned a lot of the stuff that I'm even using to this day. Like it's simple stuff, but it's stuff that maybe you haven't been taught. If you go to an absolutely outrageous team, you don't get the attention or whatever. It's
yeah.
something that you got to be careful, and if you can find the right coach, they can teach you from a young age, and I think it's really important.
I was looking at this. So the other thing that sort of struck me is that you stayed with Next Gen for until you finished in cadets, and I think in 2014, yeah, you were starting to sort of podium finishes. I mean, did you win a Super One final that year?
I came third in a Super One final at Shennington. I think that was
Yeah, I know
actually
there's
the only podium
podiums.
of the year, but we were always banging on the door of it. Remember the last round was at LGM and that was at PF, so and that was a massive race. Always LGM at PF was always huge, and I
Yeah,
was
because
leading
I
on
was.
to the last lap, but I think I had a bit of a nosebleed or whatever because I definitely didn't
It,
finish at the top on that race.
but that's something else that it takes a while to learn how to win, doesn't it? Any driver,
Yeah,
you know. I mean, you obviously learned that at quite a young age. And I'm just looking at the 2014, the drivers you were up against in that season. Yeah, again, Johnny Edgar, Tom Wood, Teddy Wilson, Kean Jewis, Dexter Patterson,
mm,
Taylor Barnard, Mark Kimber, Clayton Ravenscroft, Abby Pulling. These names, the same names keep cropping up,
yeah.
all the time, don't you? You tend to sort of follow certain drivers at the same age as you. Your careers intertwine themselves. Is there one driver that stands out from back in those in your cadet days that
I think in
you thought,
cadets,
wow,
cadets was all I was always looking up to Alex Quinn, and because I think he was from a similar sort of background as
yes,
me as well.
yeah,
He
not
he
much
didn't have
money,
all the
just
money to spend in the world, and
exactly, yes,
he's doing really well now. He's doing the Formula races where he can, where he's he gets called up by teams to go and do races for
yeah.
them. So he's done a really good job, and he definitely deserves it with the talent that he had. So I think he's another role model that people can use. Look through his career and see how he's done it. He didn't have every single resource, but he was smart with what he did, and in the end, it's worked out really well for him.
And I mean, yeah, and other thing that I noticed is that yes, so you started off with Pro Train, but then when it was went time to go to the British Championship, you stayed with Next Gen for a couple of years.
Mm,
When you moved out of cadet into sort of mini max, and then basically from mini max, junior max, and then senior max, and sort of senior X30, you stayed with KR Sport for
yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you're working for KR Sport, on the weekends. And then obviously when you've then in 2019, you had the crossroads with cars and Tony Kart came calling, but you you seem to be very loyal to teams, or
right,
and teams
yeah,
seem to be loyal to you. There's a lot of drivers in karting that they switch teams, to and fro all the time. Things aren't going right for a couple of weekends, and they've got a new mechanic, they've got a new chassis, they've got a new team. What have you learnt about taking the rough with the smooth and the benefits of staying loyal as a kart racer?
yeah. Obviously, it's important to be loyal. There are circumstances where you need to change things, but I think with KR Sport that never really came up. Um,
No.
we they're a close team to me. Like they're close. They're only 5 minutes down the road, but they're obviously close. Like emotionally, I'm close with them. It's a nice family sort of atmosphere in the team. It always has been. I felt that. You go to some teams and you just feel like it's a bit of a machine. It's a bit
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
But with
I know
Chaos
exactly
Sport,
how you feel.
we always it was always nice to go there. My dad actually mechanic for me, and that he was welcomed into the team. it was all nice, but at the end of the day, they worked hard, and the results were always fantastic. But not only from me and the team, from other drivers. When you see all the drivers in the team finishing at the front, you know the material's good and that the team are working hard.
Yeah, because KR Sport is where you started winning at
Yeah.
a British level. You know, I think you won a couple of finals in Minimax in Super One in
Yeah.
2015, but then
Hmm.
2016 you moved straight into Junior Max and became British champion for the first time. I'm
Yeah,
again
like
looking at the
yeah,
just looking at the
the
competition: William Petit, Rory Hudson, Mark Kimber again, Tommy Foster, Reese Hunter, Jonathan Hoggard.
mm,
You know, really strong feel, strong grid. What are your
definitely.
memories
But
of becoming a
it's
British champion?
as you said before, it's something that you need to win in, something that you need to learn. You can't just win from your pace. You need to win. There's ways to win a race, and in cadets I didn't necessarily have that. Um, but then in Minimax I was taught it. I was always at the front. The team always did a really good job. I was always at the front, and you learn from your mistakes you might make on one weekend, and you end up being able to win the odd race, and then it becomes an expectation, and that's when you start to win titles and stuff, when you're expected to win. So that was a lot of that was down to them. They had great coaches there. They always treated the drivers really well. There was a lot of attention to every driver, and it wasn't a team that would just take hundreds of drivers and then you end up with no attention. I think it's run
Yeah.
really well, and that's the reason why I stayed so long.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything that stands out about that 2016 season? Like one. I mean, obviously you qualified for the Rotax Grand Finals. At the end of that at Sarno, you represented Team UK. I would imagine that, yeah, representing your country, having the Team GB race suit on, that's got to be a bit of a standout memory, even if the event itself didn't end how you wanted it to. Just
Hmm.
being, say, you've represented your country at your chosen sport is pretty special.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you grow up watching the Olympics and stuff. There's your team GB and whatever, so it's always cool to represent your country at what you do. So it was really cool to go out there. It was my first international race. It was over in Italy. It didn't end fantastically, as you said. We ended up with a crash in the final, but it was my first taste of international events, and I feel like the thing in motorsport is that you do one big race and then you just want to do another, and then you do a few and you become expected to do it, and that's how the dice sort of
Yes.
rolls, and the snowball starts rolling. So it was my first taste of an international event, and that's what made me want to. I think at that point, that's when I realised that I wanted to do this forever. Then.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because obviously at some point you realise, or the people around you realise, okay, so he's not just good; he's very good at this.
Mm.
Um, and then yeah, it was 2016 when you realised I want to make my life out of motorsport.
Yeah, I think so. I always wanted to win the British Championship ever since I started doing the regional races when I was 11. So, and I never believed that I could do it even. You don't believe you can do it until it's finally done and you cross a line. So, once I had actually done it, got my ticket for the World Finals, done the World Finals, that's when I actually realised, oh, hang on, I might actually be all right, and I could actually continue to do this. So that was a massive year in my career where okay, I only won one championship that year, but it was enough to make me believe and to
Yeah,
continue
it,
onward.
it was a seminal moment of your career. Now, up until this point, the end of 2016, it's been. Honestly, there's not been ups and downs. There's been like everything. There's peaks and there's troughs. But
Mm,
2017, is it fair to say that you sort of hit your first real hurdle, stumbling block, crossroads, uh, where you broke your hand? You crashed at Glenagorse in Super One,
right.
broke your hand, and you were out for what, several months?
Yeah, a couple of months. It was a complicated break as well, so my hand was in a cast and it had pins through it. But it was, 2017 was difficult because up until that point, I'd always moved up in. After a year, I'd move
Yeah.
up into the next thing and I'd hit the
Yes.
ground running. I'd do well straight away. Um, moved up to Minimax, moved up to junior the next year, won that, moved up to senior, and I was on a bit of a roll in 2016, all going well. 2017, look at the entry list: Danny Curl, Oliver Hodgson. There's names everywhere you look. But even so, I fancied my chance. I thought, all right, these are obviously good guys, but I feel like I could do all right here
Yeah.
still. And
Well,
I was just in the
part of
deep
that
end.
is, yeah, and part of that is the sort of the teenage bravado. It is
Yeah,
natural as well.
yeah. I was 16 at the time. I thought I was probably a bit unbeatable. I went straight in and had the odd good race, but it was hard work. And you go from
And
being
then you hurt yourself.
2016, having won your British Championship, you think, here we go, we're going for it now, and and
Yeah,
within a few
just
months and hard races, you're doubting yourself again.
yeah. I mean, when you hurt yourself, obviously it was an awkward break, pins and stuff like that. What, as a family, what were the discussions then? Because you've gone from at the end of 2016 to deciding, right, I'm going to make a life out of motorsport. I'm going to do this, and
Yeah,
then 6 months later, you can't, hold a fork.
yeah,
Were there discussions about this as a family about things like that? Because
yeah. I
obviously,
think so
the
because
more you
this
race, the
this
more expensive it gets as well, which is always going to be a
yeah,
problem for
definitely,
you.
because I was 16 at the time as well, so this was the time of my GCSEs.
Ah, yes,
So I had my
rare.
exams that year as well. So it all came at once. So I think we were definitely having looks at what we wanted to do, whether I wanted to go full on my A levels and to cut down on the racing, because even 2017 I broke my hand out. Even before that, we hadn't done as much racing even that year.
No,
Uh, we didn't do any European events. We just did the X30 British Championship and the OK British Championship, which was only 3 rounds anyway. So, uh, and then the broken hand thing came, and I ended up the year with no titles at all. So it was all right. The speed was good across a couple of races, but all things at the end of the year, we ended up with no titles. So it was it was a
oh,
difficult time. Weren't sure what to do for the next year, and we just ended up taking the winter slowly and seeing what would happen.
yeah. So, I mean, where is your 16-year-old head at? A year or 16 stroke 17-year-old head at this point, where you've gone from being king of the world to
Yeah.
having a bad season. I mean, obviously you got through it. What advice would you give to drivers that are going to be in your position this year? The 16, 17, maybe jumping out of juniors into seniors and realizing it's a very big jump. Yeah,
Mm.
what would your advice be to them, and how did you get through it?
Well, I just wanted to I wanted to win every race basically. Um, I think that was sort of my mentality from the start. Was I always wanted to win. I went into seniors and I had respect for the drivers, but I wanted to win. So even when I had the crash and I broke my hand, it was a difficult time. I was out for a couple of months, but I just wanted to get back and win. I remember being at the World Championship that year was in PFI, and I had a
Yes,
broken
yes.
hand, but I still went to watch the race. I was all casted up, but I just went to watch the race anyway because I couldn't wait to get back into it. As soon as I was ready, I got back in the car and I just wanted to. I wanted to go again. That's all. That's all I wanted to do.
So you have to find some inner strength, and
Yeah,
you have to
and
sort
I
of have
think that you
self-confidence in
see,
yourself.
if if that all happens, if you're down in the dumps and you just want to stop, then maybe you should have a look at that. Maybe it's not what you want to do at that point. But me, I know that myself, I wanted to just get back into it. So, all right, I was down, but because I wanted to get back into it, that's when I knew for sure that's what I wanted to do in the future.
Yeah,
Because
and I mean, and
it's easy to say that you want to do something when it's all going well, but even when it's not going well,
yeah,
if you then want to do it, then that's pretty obvious at that
yeah.
point.
Well, because you bounced back. I think it's fair to say that you bounced back pretty spectacularly in
Mm.
2018. Won Super One in Senior X30. Uh, beat Ben Barnacote to the Kart Masters GP
Almost did,
plate in
almost did.
senior. What you beat him in senior road tax,
No,
but
so
then
senior
lost
road
out to
tax
him
he
in.
didn't do. He didn't do the road tax
Oh,
that
right.
year.
Okay. Okay. So,
Otherwise, I
sorry.
probably wouldn't have won it. But the
All right. No,
X30,
yeah, you
we had a
narrowly
good
lost out to
race.
Barnacote at Senior X30, but then won.
Yeah.
You won a GP plate, but then at the end of the
Yeah.
year, you went out and again you won the Army International final at Le Mans. You know,
Hmm.
that's so. Yeah, that
No, 20,
turnaround in
yeah,
28 from
it was
2017 to 2018 was phenomenal.
yeah, I think a couple of people moved out of the seniors as well for whatever reason. So then you're one of the top dogs at that point. It's just sort of how it naturally happens in racing. We did a fair bit of testing in the winter to get myself back into it. Obviously important after an injury or whatever. Um, and yeah, it was just a really good year. It was a year sort of like on what I'm having at the moment, where everything seems to work. And then it all got finished off at the end of the year with a really good result in the international final, which is still to date one of the biggest races and the most proud races that I've won.
Yeah, because okay, so by this point it's 2015, 16, it's your fourth year with KR Sport. At the end of
Right.
the year, again, it's you and Clayton Ravenscroft, your teammate. There's an entry of like 300 drivers or something ridiculous like that in Senior
Yeah.
X30.
Yeah.
Yeah, just try to talk about the final. Relive that final moment. Is that would say you say it's
So
your favorite
it's a
event of the year?
first of
So
all,
yeah,
it's first of all it's a really really long weekend because the I think the when I did it, I don't know what it's like now, but it started on Monday when I did it.
yeah,
So you're there for a
yeah.
whole week. You're on track Monday morning through to Sunday or Saturday. I think it was finished on
I
Sunday.
think it's finishes
Um,
Saturday. Yeah,
it finished on Saturday, so it's a really long event, and it all comes down to one race, and
yeah.
it's weird in that way that you're there every day, and it's all building up, building up, and it only matters one person wins this 20 lap final, whatever it was. So everyone's there to win, obviously, and it was a horrible final, just cutthroat. Everyone's trying to do each other over. Um, there was a few crashes in the final as well. I remember I've watched it back a couple of times, and it was just aggressive. The final was pretty horrible, to be honest, to be in.
But it boils down to you and your teammate Clayton Ravenscroft. And again,
Mm,
we mentioned Clayton Ravenscroft back in 2014. So you've been racing with him, you know, for years off and on. You're in the same team. I don't know. You seem. I mean, you were working with him on the weekend, and you were getting on, you know, pretty well.
yep.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
is that
we were, obviously you're with the same team, but when it gets to the last lap of the world finals, at that point
yeah?
everyone's thinking on themselves, thinking about themselves at that point.
Because I
Uh,
was going to say, is it the best thing to have your teammate right behind you at that level, or is it the worst thing? You
no,
know?
it's the worst thing. I think it's the worst thing because you're always worrying about you got the worst case scenario going through your head of you taking each other out and the aftermath from the boss or whatever it is. But
Yes.
yeah, I think the best case is it to be someone even someone who you don't know, someone not English who it doesn't
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
anything to you. If it's someone English as well, that's another. If it's someone from your country who you've got a race with next week, then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you don't know. So uh, it was a pretty horrible final, which yeah came down to two. We were good mates as well. We still are really good mates. Um, it come down to us two on the last lap, and we I think we both dealt with it pretty well. We both gave each other the room that we needed, and we both
Yeah.
finished first and second. So
Half a cart length between you. You know, absolutely
yeah, it was
fantastic.
nothing like if the start finish was 5 meters later, then he would have won it. But it's just how it ended up.
And it's a great way to sort of end this chapter of your
Mm,
career because the end of 2018, 2019, we hit a bit of a crossroads again. So 2019, I think it's safe to say that starts the next chapter of your careers. A difficult year in lots of ways. I mean, obviously, you went to cars, so you signed for the Carlin Motorsport team to do the British
Hmm.
Formula 4 Championship. You've got a management company on board to look after you, WH Sports Management Team. I think they still look after your interests as well.
Yep.
But it would is 2019 the year where if you'd have made you have a crossroads and
Yeah.
it would you karts cars. If
Mm.
you had chosen cars, would we be having this conversation now, or would you be out of the sport, or out not an
Uh,
active driver anymore? I know it's a tough question to ask, but I mean, it's
uh, I think probably we wouldn't be having the conversation now. I think I'd still be racing something, um,
okay.
but I wouldn't have won what I'd have won. I don't know. It's hard. It's so hard to say, isn't it? But like,
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I'd
obviously, your
still be
passion for the
racing. Yeah,
sport is one thing. Yeah, you still be
I think
racing.
I'd still be racing one thing or another, but I don't know where that would be. That might not. That could be on the other side of the world. It could be wherever. It's so hard to say.
Okay, well, talk us a little bit about how the from a driver, a kart racer who was sort of like not flush with money.
Mm.
How did the move to cars come about? Talk us through what happened, at the start of 2019 that saw you
So
sort of.
I got put with WH, put into contact with them through a friend that we know who's with them still now, Jack Hawksworth. You might
Okay,
remember
yeah,
him in English. I used to race. He's now in the US, factory driver over there. So
yep,
we knew him from when I first started in pro train. So he put us into contact with WH, and we both had similar interests. We wanted to sort of progress my career onwards. They needed a young, fast driver who wanted to do that as well. So we worked together, and we ended up doing the Formula 4 that year, the British Formula 4, which they found a really good deal for me to do. So I ended up racing with Carlin, and it's
I think you
weird
were
when you go
teammates
into
to
a team
Zane
like that
Maloney.
because yeah, that was it. Yeah, and Zane's now in Formula 3, I think. So he's going really well. So it was um it was weird because I'd been 4 years, 5 years previous with the same team, the same people, and now I'd gone.
Yep.
It's all new team. You don't know anyone. It's a new paddock as well. That everything's different. So it was weird, and it was with a top team. I knew I was with a top team. Everyone knows the story about Lando and Carlin. He started with them in his
Yep.
F4, and they pretty much took him all the way. So there's an element of you that, as well, when you're young, you're thinking you can replicate what he did.
But I mean, and also, yeah, it's. I mean, I'm guessing that the sponsorship wasn't there to make it for the full season. So you went
Mm,
into the season sort of almost like hand to mouth. But you're in the BTC, the British Touring Car paddock.
yeah.
It's live. All the races are live on British terrestrial television. Um, was there an expectation that, oh, okay, the amount of people that are going to be there, 30,000 people in the stands every round, plus millions watching on TV? Was there an expectation? Is, oh, the sponsorship money will just come, or
No, I don't think so, because you've got to do well as well. You can't just go there and expect that something will happen, because you've got to make sure that you're doing your bit. If you're at the front, then the chance of getting a sponsor is higher. So I was just I wasn't too focused on the funds or anything as a driver. I was just trying to do my bit. I was in the simulators in the week, down at Carlin in London, and at the time I was working at iZone in Silverstone, so I was using the simulator for
okay, yeah, yeah.
just making sure that I was doing my bit um, properly, which I can look back and say that I did that. So I'm really happy that I gave it
Well,
absolutely
yeah, I
everything.
mean, two second place finishes in the
Yeah.
first half of the season. I think
Hmm.
Donington Park and Alton Park.
Yeah, I
But
had a couple of finish for second places I was on the podium a lot.
yeah, you were
The
second in the rookie
standout was
points
right.
behind Zane
Okay.
Maloney as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, but you didn't finish
But
the season.
it started off really well, honestly, because I barely tested. The deal came about quite late. People obviously
Yeah, I
started
remember
testing
it was.
for their next season about November. I was put into the car a week before, and the first race we were pole position at Brands Hatch at the opening round. So it started off really well, and then for whatever reason it just didn't carry on that way. So, but I look back and I don't have regrets about it. I gave it everything that I could, so I'm happy. I'm happy for my side.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I think the fifth round of the season, it was 10 round championship. The fifth round was at Alton Park. You
Mm,
second place at Alton Park on the podium.
right.
Race three at Alton Park, you didn't score, and then
No.
that was it.
Yeah.
That was the. I mean, yeah. What sort
Yeah.
of
So the
went
start of
wrong?
2019, I also signed with Tony Kart Racing Team in karting.
Yes.
Um,
So we're getting to the crossroads now.
yeah, yeah. So this is where it all got complicated. So I'd in karting, I'd always raced in the X30 and Rotax series, but always been looking up to this FIA European official championship. Reading magazines about it, seeing it on Instagram or whatever. All the from when I was really young, and Tony Kart's the biggest team there is. And I had done really well in 2018, so I had the opportunity to go there.
Yeah. So 2019, at the start of 2019, you did you approach Tony Kart, or I suppose did you approach Tony Kart in the UK, which would be Strawberry Racing? How did
Well,
that?
yeah, so I'd done well in 2018. I'd been in the British paddock for a long time, and I'd won quite a lot of what there was to win. So I went to Strawberry, and I said Paul Spencer at Strawberry, and I said, look, we've had really good results together, because I'd been close with the OTK group, although I was not actually racing for Paul. I was close with the OTK group because I'd always
Oh, yeah,
been on
because
their
so
stuff.
KR Sports
Um,
run a Cosmic Chassis, which are part of the
yeah,
OTK family with
yeah, and
Tony Kart. So
although they're separate, there's sort of a partnership, let's say there. So I said, look, Paul, look, it's been really good, but I'm looking to go forward. I've got deals from other manufacturers to race for them, but I want to stay on the brand. I want to stay faithful. I know it's the best brand out there. I want to stay on it. So he got in touch, and the next thing I knew, a week later, I was racing at the Winter Cup in Lenato for him.
that's yeah. So that's for the official Tony Kart team. So when did you first go out to Italy and meet as Mr. Rabazzi?
So the first time I met him was I was racing at the Winter Cup. It was in Lenato. It started on the Wednesday. I was on track Wednesday, and I don't think he came to the track Wednesday. But the first time I met him would have been the Thursday, and just got on really well from the start. He came up. How's it going? Yeah, speed looks good. Thank you for everything. Thank you for getting me for this race. Hopefully, I can do a good job for you. And after that, it wasn't really any more talk about that. It was just about straight away working. How can we improve? How can we win this race?
Uh huh.
How can we improve the next session or whatever? And it all started from there.
So really, I mean, you got to thank Paul Spencer has got to take a lot of credit for making that initial contact with Tony Kart. Did you get a phone call? How did it work out this drive? Did you say, okay, yep, they want to give you a one race trial, get yourself to Lenato?
So I was in Valencia when I first spoke to Paul about it because we were at a race. I was racing against him. Um, I think he ended up winning the race with Dean McDonald and I was second, so that probably helped the negotiations a bit. He didn't I didn't annoy him too much by winning the race, but no, he said that he'd sort something for me and he stuck to his word and he did, which is the most you can ask from a person. So I got a lot to thank him for that.
Yeah, I mean, and so, but you said, so you're testing, you get thrown into a different country, a very Italian, a different karting culture. The boss of Tony
Yeah.
Kart turns up. Oh, hello. Yep, thank you. Right, let's work on making this go quicker. Making this go quicker. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
What a culture change.
that's one of the important things. I think there was no there was no rubbish when we started. It was just I got there and it was work. I was just doing my job, what I loved doing, racing and trying to win the race, and that was what was important. There was no big political thing about what are we going to do going forward or whatever. It was just right. Thanks for coming. Let's let's
So
get down to work. Let's see what you can do, and the fact that they put that trust in me to go and do it was really
Well,
great from them. It worked
yeah, I
out.
mean, and obviously you repaid that by finishing third in that race.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
but also, I would suggest that maybe that's a deliberate thing to see the mental side of you, of the mental side of how strong you are mentally, you know, to just get thrown in and say, right, Tony Kart factory team, work. You've had no notice to get there. You've been there for a couple of days. Yeah, that's almost them testing you out as a driver, as a person. As well. Can you handle this type of pressure to be thrown in at the deep end and just be like, okay? And I imagine a lot of the mechanics don't speak much English; they're all Italian. So
yeah,
you are, yeah. It
yeah.
can be
No,
either one of
it
those
was
things where you're
difficult.
either
I
a
think
rabbit in the headlights.
I was lucky because I was 17 at the time, so I was fairly. I had half a clue what was going on. I'd been in the sport for a long time. If it had happened two
Yeah,
years before, I'm sure it might have been a bit different because I would have been a bit intimidated by it all and whatever. But I knew that they were there to win. I was there to win. So whatever else happened, it didn't matter. We just wanted to do the best we could, and the speed was good. So it was just a perfect first weekend, really.
yes. I mean, but obviously, so for the first half of 2019, I mean, okay. So after that first weekend, what was the conversation with Tony Kart like about your position with them going forward?
Um, After the race on the Sunday, it was just that they said, "Well done, obviously, congrats on the podium. We'd like to have you back." There was a race in the same track next week. It was for the WSK, so I ended up just not even going home on the Sunday night. I stayed there. I can't remember
Right.
what I did the Monday and Tuesday, but I just stayed there and ended up racing the next weekend. And the next weekend was good. We won a couple of heats. We had a crash in the pre-final, so we didn't go through. But the speed was there again. It was all business as usual. So at that point, it was right. Okay, well done. Do you want to do the championship? Not the whole year. Do you want to do the championship? Yeah, I'll do the championship. So we did that. Another good few races. All right, now we stay the next 6 months, and then it's just more. We want you until then, and then and then it was a contract, and I've been with them ever since.
I mean, it's obviously it's remarkable, but it did mean that you had to make a very difficult decision. Because I'm
Mm,
sure that every kid that starts out in racing, they got a dream, Formula One or cars.
yeah,
Cars.
yeah,
You're in a car. You're in a car. You're in a very good car. You're in a Carlin
yeah.
motorsport car, and you're doing well in it. Okay, there's sponsorship to find and things like that, but and it's not the end of the road. But yeah, what was that like then? Okay, if I'm going to become a factory driver for Tony Kart and commit to them properly, you know, I'm. When did it dawn on you that you would have to step away from the cars side of things?
Well, it was. We're talking probably about July of the year, so we're approaching the end of the European Championship and the World Championships up in September. I think it was in Finland.
Yeah,
So, and the results had been good over the year, but I knew that I could do better. I knew that I could win races, and we had some big races coming up at the end of the year. So I had to look at what was going on. I was probably trying to do too much. I was trying to do F4 one week, then be in karting the next week, then the simulator on Monday and Tuesday, and then at the track on Wednesday. And in the end, I probably didn't do myself any favors. I was just not doing a full job for either part. So at that point, I decided that I would stop with the and just focus completely on karting because that was at the time what I wanted to do. It's still what I want to do at the moment. So I decided to go there, and the World Championship that year didn't end well, but we won a couple of heats, and I won two of the last three races of the year. So I stopped with one bit, focus on the karting, and it paid off because the results turned up completely.
and did you feel a difference in you as a driver
Um,
once you'd made that decision? Was it what was it your
no, I
decision?
don't
Did you have
think
did you
so
discuss
because
with your
as a
parents?
I don't think so because as a driver you always feel like you've done the best job you can and that you've given 100% and that you're never the problem. I think when you're a driver, um, and what you look back now and you say, okay, probably I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't 100% on it because not because I wasn't committed, but because I was just trying to do too much. Because I was in a Formula 4 car on Sunday, and then when I went in on
Yeah,
Wednesday to the kart, which is not like a tenth of the weight and a tenth of the power, a fifth of the power, you're not quite up to it. Maybe you're a tenth off, but
and a tenth
that tenth is
is everything in
everything.
karting.
So
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's just I stopped with the cars, focus on karting, a lot of testing before the World Championship. We worked well together and it went well, so that was good.
Yeah, so I mean, so obviously 2020 comes around, COVID hits. You know, you're
Right.
a factory driver. You're supposed to be racing in Italy. You know, obviously when karting restarted, yeah, it was still. I think you won the Winter Cup. You third in the European
Yep.
Championships, second in the World Championships. I mean, Portimao at the end of the year, your teammate Callum Bradshaw won. You were second. So it was a Tony Kart 1-2. What were your thoughts about that at the end of what had been a phenomenally difficult year to come away second? Obviously, every racing driver wants to win, but on reflection now, the emotions about that.
Yeah, no, I was really happy about that race. The team had worked really hard all year. We had third in the European. Um, I think we deserved higher in the European, to be honest. Our speed was good at every race. So the World Championship, we did a lot of testing for. We were there for the race before. We were there for testing before. We were testing back in Italy, the engines. So we went fully in for this World Championship, and we ended up with 1, 2, 3 on the podium for the team. So it was like unbelievable. Obviously, you want to win, but you look to your left and your right, and there's two guys from the team. The team's all there, everything's happy. And as a factory driver,
Yeah,
you want to win, but you feel like you've done your job. The
yeah, because
team,
you're wearing
you've
someone
been
else's
first,
coat.
second, and third. You've developed the best material for this race. You've bought the best material for the race. You feel like you've done the best job you can.
So after 2020, I mean 2021, seventh in the World Championships. You were disappointed in the European, but you were quick, but luck wasn't on your side. Um,
Hmm.
but the one thing that struck me, there's a photo of you and Sebastian Vettel. He's in a Tony Kart suit, and obviously you with you. So tell us a little bit about working with four-time Formula One world champion Sebastian Vettel.
Oh, so I was at a race in Italy, and the boss of the team said, uh, they've got a partnership obviously with Ferrari, the team that I'm with at the moment, and this was back when Sebastian was with Ferrari, and it was just, oh Joe, there's a Ferrari day next week. Do you want to come and drive it? Do you want to come and test? And it wasn't even for me to go around and test with Ferrari drivers. It was just for me to go around and test engines like we normally would. And I
Uh-huh.
thought maybe it would be some Ferrari driver academy drivers, and it turn up and Sebastian Vettel name sticker on the car. Oh, here we go. Um, and yeah, I ended up uh, driving with him on the track at the same time. He was awesome guy. He was so. If you just met him, you wouldn't think he's a global superstar and won what he has. You'd think he's just an absolutely normal guy. He was really awesome
Yeah.
guy. We went for dinner afterwards. It was just one of the most surreal days, but it was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that. I mean, not only is Vettel a real student of the game, he knows, you know, the history of the sport. He's a, you know, he's an anorak in some respects, but you know, and that's great. But yeah, he's always come across as being very humble. And I suppose, you know, you're not there discussing like you're not feeding him the same questions that he gets asked 1,000 times a year by you're just talking about karting. So
Yeah,
instantly
yeah, it was cool because
there's a
it was a
connection
bit of a
because
it was a bit of a back to grassroots day because he just came and he was just driving around. I think he had a race the next week or something, but it was just a day for him to. There was no
yeah.
media there really. It was just a day for him to get away from it or enjoy what he likes doing. And I'm glad that I could have been there. Some really cool photos of us on the track together in the tent together. Yeah, not. It was just a surreal day. It was really awesome. But one of the
Oh,
best guys I've met from racing.
a long way from Daytona Milton Keynes.
Yeah. It's just surreal. Like I say, like never even the year before when I was doing well in races, but I would have never thought I would have been where I was the year after. It was. yeah, incredible. And still, I think I look back, probably my favorite day actually racing. Not, it wasn't even a race. There was nothing to
No,
win. It was just
yeah.
a day. It
It,
was just a. It was
it's like,
just
yeah,
a.
this
I
life can
was,
give you some incredible memories, can't it? The life that we choose to
yeah,
be in this sport.
yeah,
Every once in a while, something, yeah, surreal happens that you just have to pinch yourself, and it makes up for the dark times. You know,
yeah. It
the
makes it all
times
worth
where,
it, I guess.
yeah, well, I'm sure that you've had times in your families where it's like, okay, the budget is not there. You know,
Mm.
you've had, I'm sure there's been like
Yeah, of
moments like
course.
that
Yeah, yeah.
in the past.
Multiple times we'd miss out on races and stuff just because we couldn't. It wasn't physically possible. We didn't race in Europe until we knew that we could. I could absolutely do well in it. We just tried to bide our time and do everything correctly. Like we said earlier, we were just selective with what we did and made sure that every pound spent, we were getting 100% out of it.
Yeah. So moving on to this year, we mentioned at the start. Obviously, you're leading the European Championships. You've won the WSK Supermasters. Um, Zuera was a phenomenal performance, but we got to talk. We got to brush on Portimao. So obviously, everyone knows that the opening round of the FIA European Karting Championships at Portimao this year. Artem Severukin won the senior OK final and decided to make a gesture on the podium. That went global. What a lot of
Mm,
people don't realise is that you were standing next to him at the time. Now, obviously,
right.
you're focused on, your bit. At what point did you realise? I'm not saying that, but what point did someone mention to you, or did you realise that something's gone a bit wrong here?
Well, not until after on. I think the anthems were playing. I was just stood there looking off into the distance, a bit in my own world. And then yeah, the next day you see on the news and everything, and that's when I first found out it was, yeah,
Yeah.
obviously something we're not used to. So a bit weird.
No, I mean, so do you find I find this incredibly frustrating. That the only two times in the last 5 years that karting has been on the BBC Sports website and in the national newspapers over here was once when Luca Corberi decided to launch his nose cone at another driver, and for what Severukin did. And
Mm.
it. Do you find that so frustrating that all you've achieved in the sport, and yet the wider public only get to hear about the two things that the sport are least proud of in the last few years?
Yeah, it is a shame, but I think it's just the way the world is. I think it would be the same if it was in football, the same if it was in tennis. If there was a scandal, everyone would hear about it. It would be in the newspapers. It would be published around because it's gossip and it's what people enjoy. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's just a
I, I,
shame,
I,
really.
I did notice, and again, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I did notice on the podiums at Zuera, all three of you on the podium, you had the flowers and the trophies held in, they say to you, look, we want you to use both hands of the podium, hold the two things. Was that,
No,
or is that
I
just a
didn't say anything.
coincidence?
It was just what we were given, and we just sort of stood there and we do a podium like we normally would. I mean, yeah, there was nothing
Yeah, no,
weird
no,
about it. It was just
it was just the way,
another
I
race,
looked at it. I
really.
thought that, yeah, that you've everyone's got you're all three of you are holding two things, so that it was maybe just me, but I mean, obviously that has impacted your championship in a positive way. I mean, Mr. Savukin
Mm.
wasn't in Zuera. I don't know when and if he's going to be back. That's not that's irrelevant to this conversation. You were right next to one of the most controversial moments in the sport, but it has worked out well for you. It has to be said, hasn't it?
Yeah,
He's been
obviously the
excluded, and
FIA have
you were
handled
given the victory.
handled the situation obviously, and as a result, I'm now promoted into first, and then everyone subsequently is promoted up a position as well. So it just means that I ended up winning the race. I'm now maximum points halfway through the championship. So we just need to make sure that we keep on winning races, and hopefully the championship should fall our way.
Yes, and I mean, just to finish off, because does that incident and the fact that, yes, you were in the papers for standing next to somebody who was doing something outrageous, does that, the next time you want to be in the newspapers is when you are crowned a world karting champion? Does that give you any extra impetus? I want to be in the papers for the right reasons. I want
Yeah,
the
definitely.
public to see my face in the newspapers, not because I'm standing next to somebody doing something stupid, because I've become a world champion for my country.
Yeah, it's not something I really think about. I don't do it to be in the papers or anything. I don't do it for people to say, look at him, he's won this race. I do it for myself. I just want to win and be the best. I just want to be the best and try and win every race that I can. So no, it's not something that I think about. It's just business as usual now. We finish the European Championship fairly soon. It will be a lot of testing, a lot of hard work over the summer. And then on to Sano in September, I think it is, for the World Championship.
Yeah. You've Would you say that the door to car racing is completely closed, or is it just temporarily shut? If it reopens, you would be,
No,
interested
no, I
in,
wouldn't say so at all. I'm only 20 at the moment. Maybe to go to Formula One, it's closed, but I'm 20 now. There's most uh, drivers who are in factory cars in GT and making a living from it aren't under 25. So
yeah,
um, there's plenty of years to come still. There's people who go into stop karting and go into cars at 30 and make a living from that. Yeah, I'm always looking at cars because it's something that I would like to do in the future, especially sports cars. But no, it's not too late. I'm just going to carry on doing what I enjoy at the moment, keep doing my job, and try and win races. What happens will happen. But at the moment, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. There's no reason for me to change at the moment. I'm happy. There's nothing more that I could want to be doing.
Well, Joe, I've got to say it's been a decade. The first decade of your karting journey has been fantastic, and I have a feeling that not only your talent but also your dedication and professionalism will mean that the second decade of your karting and motorsport journey will be just as, if not even more, interesting. Thanks
Thanks,
very much for
thanks. I
joining
hope
me.
so. Yeah, thank you very
Brilliant.
much. No, it's been a good experience. It's the first one I've done, so hopefully it hasn't been too bad. But no, thank you very much.
Well, we'll be keeping track on you throughout the course of the season. Good luck for the European Championships and, of course, the World Championships later in the year. Joe Turney.
Nice one. Thanks, Henry.